for Sunday's game. Jay Feely is on with us right now. Jay, of course, a longtime kicker in the NFL and a longtime co-worker of mine and friend of mine. Jay, it's great to see you again. You're sharing the screen with Aditi, just like you will be on Sunday.
Jay, I gotta correct you though. I think we're the A team, just personally.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, no, we don't need Tony Romo.
That's right. Tony Romo's annoying. Let's all admit it right now.
Come on, you're putting him in a tough spot.
He gets paid I'm saying it. He's paid too much.
Our producer is a guy named Jason Ross. And the very first time I talked to Jason Ross, the very first conversation he had with me was telling me how great Spiro Dides and Jay Feely are and how tremendous they are. And he doesn't understand why they don't do 17 games a year or 18 games. And he said, it's going to be hard for you to break in because the two of them just have outstanding chemistry and have such useful things to say.
Jason's right. They are. They're great. They're underrated.
Jason agrees with Jay. I'll say that.
There's a big arrow next to both of their names and yours too, Aditi. Jay, when you think of this matchup, I know that in the past you've always been the special teams guy because that was your world. But you're as a color analyst, when you look at this football game, how do you break it down? What's going to win this game ultimately?
Well, Jay, I love this game. I can't wait. And like you guys said, the storylines are just so many, and it's so juicy. And you start looking into this game and you're breaking it down. You say, okay, where did Baker struggle last year outside of the injury? And you look at how Stefanski called games, his lack of 12 personnel that he used so effectively the year before, and you say, okay, how is his McAdoo going to use him now? And what is he going to do to allow Baker to try to be his best? And then when I look at this Browns team, I think they're a really, really good team, outside of a couple of factors. Obviously with Deshaun Watson not being there for 11 games and Jacoby Brissett. The irony is that I did Jacoby's first start with the Patriots. I did his first start with the Colts. We did his game last year with the Dolphins, and we're doing this game. So I've been the Jacoby Brissett fan club here, calling games up in the booth. I think they can win with him. I really do. And you look at their schedule, the first 4 games, it's the easiest schedule in the NFL. It's all 4 winnable games, and they have to get out to a fast start because the end of the schedule is so tough. And you're just trying to look through those first 11 games and say, okay, what can we do to stay maybe above 500 through those first 11 games and keep ourselves in the playoff hunt? And obviously you got to rely on that offensive line as well as the running game. And that's where Jacoby is effective. When he is able to use play action, he can use his legs and you can roll him out and you're running the ball effectively. That's when he can be at his best. And, this is a team that I think has the best defense, in the league. I really do. I think the Browns, when you look at the combination of that secondary and you combine that with the edge players and being able to get off the edge with Myles Garrett, Clowney, and what they can do, maybe Wright, this rookie, who they're high on, I think it's a defense that can be really scary and really good. And I think they're going to continue to get better because they got so much depth in that secondary to go along with that pass rush.
Let me ask you both this question.
Wait, Adam, I've got a question first for Jay. Jay, so what's Jacoby's record in those games that you've called?
Oh, yeah. Good question.
Let me see. I have to think about it. He won the Patriots game. I don't think they won the Colts game, and they won the Dolphins game. So he's 2-1.
2-1.
All right.
The Jay Feely factor, baby.
There you go. So let me ask you this, both. Obviously, he's a quarterback. His strength is he doesn't turn the ball over. He manages the offense. The Browns have a great running game. I said before, I want to see them run 65% of the time. I know it's crazy. It's kind of unheard of in this NFL. But when you've got 2 of the 5, in my opinion, 5 best running backs in the league, I think you do it. I want to see Chubb and Hunt get 40 touches between them. Is that crazy? Is that going too far for both of you?
Well, you have to have balance, and you have to be able to keep a defense from knowing what you're doing. But you do have to rely on them. And when you're getting, 5-6 yards a carry, I mean, you look at Chubb, over 5 yards a carry in his career, it's just spectacular. When you look at the big runs, when you look at the home runs, the big hits, and how they're able to get explosive plays, I mean, that's all you really care about as an offensive play caller is how do we create explosive plays and protect the ball carrier, and I think when you rely on those running backs, you're going to do that. And obviously your weakness is your depth and your wide receiver position, outside of Amari Cooper, and I'm a Michigan guy, so I like Donovan Peoples-Jones a lot, and he's developing and coming along, but after that,
No,
there's a lot of uncertainty on that team.
Didi, how about you? Am I going too crazy
But
with the
no,
run
no,
game?
no, no. I agree with Jay on the bat. Why do you go sign Amari Cooper if you don't think that you can occasionally take advantage of that? You do have to keep that defense honest to some degree. Now, I don't know if Anthony Schwartz is going to stretch the field. I think the next ball he catches, maybe the first great catch that I see, but he's due. He is due after that last preseason game. And I know that this isn't palatable to Jay, but that young man out of Purdue, David Bell, he catches everything and is very impressive. And so I could see them using him in the slot a little bit. Again, I think Adam 40 is a bit high. You want to see how the game goes. I think that you do need to keep that defense honest,
but
and I
throw
wouldn't be
40
surprised if
touches.
you see him go deep to Amari Cooper early.
40
nice
touches,
little
I'm going
double
to throw to
move.
Hunt.
I mean, you can do that. Yeah, true. But I'd love to see Amari Cooper go shake somebody out of his shoes with one of his patented double moves and get them going a little bit. That's the best way almost to get the run game going is by putting that defense on its heels a little bit, sending a message early.
Aditi, I'm horrified that this offense is going to come out slow, the Browns, as they tend to do, especially in first games. And these guys haven't played together. Most of them literally haven't even been on the field together yet in anything, even in preseason games. Do you think that's a legitimate concern, or am I just worrying over nothing?
I mean, I think Browns fans worry over nothing as a rule, as a habit, and
that
I
we've ever
do
had a
think
reason.
B.
Definitely true.
Come on, Aditi.
I think B, it's legitimate, it's fair, because what have you really seen? But again, remember, preseason games are all vanilla. You're not really necessarily seeing anything, and again, you've got a healthy quarterback who doesn't make a lot of mistakes, who doesn't need to manufacture a chip to get up for a game. You've got arguably one of the best offensive lines in the game, no matter who is playing at right tackle. You've got two outstanding running backs, as Adam just said, who can carry a load if necessary. You also added a number one receiver who is absolutely the personality that this team needs at number one receiver and is consistent in a way that you haven't really had in a number one receiver for a long time. And you have two tight ends. You just added a third one, by the way. How about Jesse James? Hey, Jay Feely, by the way, Jesse James caught that ball against the Patriots. It was a catch. You just added the third tight end. They're going to get more out of that tight end room than they got a year ago.
Yeah.
And Aditi, that plays to Jacoby's strengths. He's not a guy that, you want to try to throw the ball 20, 30 yards down the field continually. You want to play action. You want to utilize his legs. You want to allow Amari Cooper to show off that route running that's so spectacular and allow him to take advantage of knowing where to go with the ball and throwing those short passes and allowing guys like Kareem Hunt and Amari Cooper and Njoku and allow them to get the ball and use their legs and make plays. And I think that's what their game plan is going to be. They're going to try to come out. They may come out a little slow, because they're trying to protect Jacoby Brissett, not put him in situations that are difficult for him early on. But, I think this is an offense that can be effective.
Jay, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about Cade York. That's your wheelhouse. I love the kid. When they drafted him, I said he's going to be the memorable pick in this entire draft. I've been mocked by my panel. It's been horrible. They treat me, you can't believe how they treat me. They treat me worse than Skip Bayless used to treat us.
Let's not get nuts.
Well, it's pretty close. I love the kid. And I know it's practice, and everybody wants to say, well, okay, so he hit a 70-yarder in pregame last week. Look, before you can, it's like in golf. You can't make the putt if the putt doesn't get to the hole. I love this kid's leg. He's made pressure kicks. He kicked at a big school. If you're giving him a grade from 1 to 100, where are you on Cade York right now?
Well, Jay, it's incomplete because it doesn't matter what you did in practice.
No, based on what you've seen in college.
It's what you do in games.
You've seen in college.
Yeah, this is a guy who kicked 3 years at LSU and kicked really well and had a career long of 57 yards, has a big leg, and you need a guy like that. And if you feel like Mike Prefer knows kickers, and I played for Mike Prefer, I got a lot of respect for him and who he is, his knowledge of the game. And, he was really excited to be able to go and get this young man and, to be able to come in and stabilize that position, hopefully for a long time. You think back to Phil Dawson and, the struggles that Cleveland has had, but how good he was consistently there. It's a difficult place to kick in Cleveland, game in and game out, when you're kicking on the grass and you have the wind and you have the cold later in the season, so it's going to be a challenge for him. But If he can stabilize that position, that's an asset, especially for a team that figures to play a lot of close ball games, trying to win games. At the end of a game, you need a guy who can go in there and make those kicks.
Aditi, before we say goodbye, Jay took Cade York in the 6th round of his fantasy draft.
That's not true.
6th
No,
round.
I did not.
Oh, my God.
No, but
Hey, a kicker matters. I'll tell you, I was in the finals last year, and my kicker was the difference between my winning and losing.
they do matter. But Brad Sellers in our fantasy draft for the show took him in the 5th round.
It was the worst fantasy pick ever.
I did take Cade York, but I got him with the very last pick,
last
17th
fine.
round.
Thanks, Aditi.
Aditi, thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
All right, guys. Jay, I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Jay, this 70 yards, explain what that, obviously the NFL record is 66 yards. What was your range?
Right.
What's the longest you ever hit a kick? Practice, game, whatever. Where were you?
I think my longest was 73. I mean, when you go out to Denver, and we would always go back, Prater and I would always go back past 70 when we were warming up in Denver because you're at Mile High and the ball flies out there. But you kind of get a feel every game, and you get an idea of exactly how far you can kick each way, especially when it's an outdoor game with wind and, you may go and, okay, I can make it to 55 going this way, and it's only 51 going that way. And you're going to tell your coach prior to the game so that he understands and he knows, okay, inside of this, it's on me to make that kick. And, especially if you're a veteran guy, those coaches in that conversation, you have those after warmups. And, he kind of knows exactly where you should be and where they should ask you, to do something. And maybe they come to you and say, hey, we're outside that range, but do you think you can make it? The problem is I never once said no. You're always going to say yes.
Hold on. I'm just sitting here looking at this. Put that stat back up for real quick.
Got you.
It says you missed only 3 extra points, 449 out of 452. That's crazy.
Can you recall those 3 missed extra points?
And on top of that, do you like the fact that they moved the extra point back? And what would you think your total would have been if they were under the same rules?
I probably would have had a few more misses. I think it's separated. I think it has been a very good move because it took a play that was basically a foregone conclusion and created drama, and it separated the really good kickers from the ones that weren't quite as good. I mean, you look at a guy like Justin Tucker, he doesn't miss him. He's so good and so consistently excellent every year. That moving that back, it hasn't impacted him at all. It certainly has a cumulative effect. When you miss a couple of kicks, whether they're extra points or field goals, it builds throughout the season. That pressure does. And so it adds 3 or 4 kicks a year that you miss that adds on to those missed field goals, and that makes it more difficult. But that also highlights why the great kickers are paid what they are now and why teams value them so much.
Who's got the edge in this game Sunday on special teams? I know that even though you're the color analyst and you're focusing on everything, I know you still look at the special teams, and that a lot of times that decides football games. Is there a team that has an advantage Sunday?
Well, I think losing Jakeem Grant was tough. That's a guy that can be a home run hitter. He's so dangerous with the ball, and you kind of don't know exactly what you're going to get now in the return game. I think with the depth that Cleveland has on defense, when you look at that secondary, the linebacking core, their ability to take a lot of those players and put them on special teams and utilize them, they're going to have a very good special teams unit. I like Andre Roberts. I think I played with Andre. Andre is the consistent pro, consummate pro, a guy who, if you give him an opportunity, he's going to make a big play. But having a rookie kicker and understanding that, it's his first game, you just don't know how a guy's going to respond, in those situations, even though he played at LSU and even though he played in big games against Alabama. But when you look at Carolina, they got a guy in Eddie Pinheiro who has bounced around a lot and has not had consistency as well. Right. So they're kind of both unproven at the kicker position.
Do you remember your first kick?
Of course. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What was going through your mind when you were running on the field?
Well, I went out there. We were playing at San Francisco, and they had another rookie kicker as well. So the two of us I think we both had, missed like half our kicks in warm-ups. We had the worst warm-up ever. And then, of course, the game went to overtime. They got the kick in overtime and won it. But, to go out there and you make that first one, it's like getting called up, and it's your first time pitching. It's that first batter. You think you're good enough. You think you can do it. You've done all the work. But until you go out there and you prove it, and you strike a guy out, you don't really know if you have the stuff. And And that's kind of how it is with me. It actually took me probably a couple of years to feel like I belonged, a couple of years to feel like, okay, like I can really do this and I'm as good as anybody else out there.
Wow.
Jay, take us inside the locker room for Baker v. the Browns defense. They obviously didn't know each other well. Maybe there's some bad blood. I don't know. Who has in general, I mean, I guess you never know specifically, but for years you were in the locker room. You've probably seen situations like this. You've been in situations like this. Who do you think has the edge in knowing each other, if you will?
Well, I think it's fascinating, and that to me is I can't wait for this game because of that. And when you look at Myles Garrett, obviously he wants to get after Baker, and Baker wants to have a great game against the Browns because they gave up on him. And I kind of like the fact that he's being honest about wanting to get back at his team. I was always honest about that. Like any team that gave up on me or cut me, I wanted to have an unbelievable game, when I played against them. And I think that's natural. And I think guys who try and downplay it, they're just not being honest. But when you sit there and you talk about Baker, okay, he knows, how a guy like Denzel Ward plays and what he likes to do and when he wants to jump routes. And he understands, a lot of these young guys are going to play a lot, for this Browns defense. And so I think he can take advantage of that secondary, but that defense understands Baker and they know what his strengths are, especially that coaching staff. They understand what he does well. They understand what defenses he doesn't like, what coverage he doesn't like, what confuses him. I think the Browns have the advantage because of the information that they can have and that Joe Woods can go out there and implement and use to their advantage because they do know Baker so well.
Who at the end of the day, I know that we've got the stars. So minus the McCaffreys and Baker and for the Browns, Chubb, Hunt, who do you think is going to be the pivotal player that decides this game? Who is that going to be on Sunday?
Well, when you have a rookie at left tackle for Carolina going up against Myles Garrett, he's a dominating physical run blocker, but he's a work in progress as a pass blocker. That's a tough opening game for him. Mm-hmm. When you sit there and you say, okay, you gotta keep Myles Garrett off of Baker Mayfield and a very motivated Myles Garrett. I think that matchup will decide the game. I think his ability to slow down Myles Garrett, if he can, and allow Baker to be able to function, is going to determine that game. Because if Myles Garrett can do whatever he wants and he's been able to go up against Brian Burns, they're very good defensive linemen as well, and I think that's probably helped him a lot. But Myles Garrett's a different beast, and he covers so much ground. He's got such a quick get off. He's got that little Euro step, and he can do so many different things, to confuse a guy and to get quickly by him. That I think he's gonna have an unbelievable game. I really think he's got to be licking his chops going up against a rookie and understanding he wants to get after Baker Mayfield.
The only thing that can be better than the season beginning with Carolina and the Cleveland Browns is if it ends that way too. Can you imagine that storyline?
That'd be beautiful.
Hey,
no
a
chance.
guy can dream. A guy
No
can dream.
chance.
A
Well,
guy
no
can
chance
dream.
for the Panthers. Maybe
Oh, I see. You're saying that the Browns can get there, but the Panthers can't.
Well, when Deshaun Watson comes back, if they're still in the hunt, I think the Browns can get there, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they're not the favorites. They shouldn't be. They have a bad,
Remember,
subpar quarterback.
4 months ago when we were doing the show, and we asked the question, what's your dream scenario for game one? And I said my dream scenario is the same as my nightmare scenario. It's Cleveland at Carolina against Baker Mayfield and the Panthers. It's come to fruition.
Yes.
4 months from now, if it's Cleveland
Can't
and
wait.
Carolina in the Super Bowl, I want you to know you heard it here first.
All right.
Yep, you called it, man.
I'm going to go lay 10,000 on that action now.
Yeah. Thanks, Jay.
Jay, you're awesome. Hey, before I let you go,
my
how's
pleasure.
the golf game going? You still scratch?
No, it's a struggle. Me and my driver aren't friends right now.
You're not on speaking terms, or you are, but you just can't say what you're telling it.
That's right.
Yeah, join the club. Jay, great to see you again. Have a great
Jay.
call Sunday.
Hey,
We're all
guys.
going to be listening, man.
Thanks, man.
Great.